Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Off the Gas podcast. Before we begin, I'd like to apologize. Okay, I didn't realize my phone volume was up. Before we begin, I'd like to make a quick apology for, one, the fact that we're on this channel and not the actual podcast channel. YouTube would not let me stream until 24 hours after I verify the phone number on the account. So, for that reason, this episode will be on this channel, and all following episodes will be on the official channel, Off the Gas. Make sure you subscribe to that if you haven't already. And with that being said, let's hop right into it. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. There's been a lot of wild league races in the last couple weeks. A lot of leagues approaching the playoffs. So we're going to talk about all those. But let's start all of this off with the Axel Xfinity Series in the NXT Racing League. Race at Kentucky happened Sunday on Father's Day. Or no, sorry, it wasn't Sunday. It was... Yes, it was Sunday, because the race got delayed, yes. So this was a Father's Day race, about 6 p.m. or so it wasn't very high attendance. About 7, 8, maybe 9 people were there, give or take a couple. Worm, of course, one of the multiple admins in NXT. We'll get to that situation later. But he was there, and he left mid-race, leaving Hendrick in charge. I'm not sure if Hendrick has admin in there, but he was left in charge of later portions of the race. But let's talk about a couple things with this race. First off, the race was supposed to be run Saturday night at, what, like 8, 9, 9:30, something like that. And it got postponed because no one showed up. Well, they had a couple people. They could have run it anyways with a couple people. That's what we ended up doing on Sunday. Why not run it anyways? But the biggest thing, and this is the first part where the league owners needed to really put their foot down, is that there were a group of 5 people in a party that knew the race was going to happen and chose instead to sit on Fortnite. They even admitted this to the league owner right after, that they chose instead to sit on Fortnite and play that instead of going to the race. When they knew the race was happening, they had said they would be at the race. As a league owner, how are you going to stand for that? Especially if it's to the point where you're going to postpone your race because you don't have people. So tell me, why as a league owner you would stand for that? So, my first thing to say for that is penalize the assholes. If people are going to be fucking assholes and they're going to just sit out and knowing the race is going to happen, they're online, they're just playing a game for fun, penalize them if you need to, if it's what's going to get you attendance. Sure, people ain't going to like it, but, you know, you got to put your foot down at some point, man. But once the race did eventually get started, first couple stages went pretty well until we got towards the end of the race, and it became a fuel mileage race with guys about maybe a lap short on gas, most of them. Of course, there were a couple incidents. There were really only 3 cars in contention for the large majority of the race. Eternal, Grigga, and Marner really came down to the 3 of them for a lot of the race. They had similar pace. Grigga was maybe a little bit off of the other 2. Marner had a little bit more long run pace than Eternal, but coming towards the finish, Marner actually sped on the last pit cycle, meaning that it was a race between Grigga and Eternal. Now, with this being said, Eternal pitted a lap before Grigga, meaning Grigga was actually good on gas by a half a lap. Eternal had to save about quarter to a third lap of gas to be able to make it to the finish. And this is the first point I want to make, is that some people would assume in that situation that it was over and Grigga had the win before the caution came out. But it was never over. The one car, Eternal, did have more pace, did have really good draft, which we'll talk about draft more later in this episode. And gas races, it's just never over, man. Those races are wild. They're really fun, and I advocate for more of them if league owners are able to find a way to. Once the caution did come out late in the race, which we won't get too far into that whole situation, there were a couple more incidents involving the eventual race winner, Eternal. With 3 to go, there was some contact with Marner, which was chopped up to be a racing incident. Both talked after the race. But with about 6 laps to go, there was contact between him and Griga. That would end up putting Griga into the pothole on the straightaway. Of course, being Kentucky, there's that pothole there. Griga would end up hitting it, wrecking his car in what he thought would have been his win. And this is an interesting thing, and honestly, I'm not sure exactly where the pothole is. I can never figure it out, but this is something I think, especially going into future Kentucky races, everyone needs to be mindful of, is that if you're going to block low, you got to expect someone's going to hit the pothole, and really, I think leagues should start keeping this in mind and maybe even imposing a rule about it, because that was something that did end up screwing Griga out of that win, which obviously the one had no intention of it, but when you're in that situation and you're Griga in that situation, you just got wrecked by the pothole, there's got to be something that needs to be done about that, and obviously nothing was, because there's no rule, anything to do with it, but that is something that drivers and league owners alike need to keep in mind, especially going to Kentucky, is that pothole's right there in the middle of the fucking racetrack. It should not be there, IRL or in the game. Speaking of Eternal's win, that win made 4 years. Or not that win. Today actually makes 4 years since his first league win, all the way back in the Coca-Cola Truck Series and C Cups at Bristol. Quick thing I wanted to note there before we moved on, but let's talk about the race that you are probably all here for. Let's talk about NXT at Auto Club. Now, there's so many things to this race. There are so many different things, and after we talk about this, I'm going to turn it over to you guys in the chat, the fans, and I'm going to see what you guys have to say about this, and I'm going to react to some of your comments and some of your questions. But let's just go in order here. I have been racing leagues for almost 4.5 years now. I started in February of 2018, and I have never been in a race like that. Before the race even began, and I will give credit here, Orange has a great video, about 12 minutes on his channel, where he talks about this entire race. And what I'm about to talk about here for a second, Boger has a great video on his channel. Alright, so that's what we'll have to do. My headset automatically shuts itself off if no noise comes through the earbuds for a while. But Boger has a great video on his channel that just shows the entire clip of this. It's about a 20-minute clip. I highly recommend watching it if you were not at the race or you haven't seen it already. But we made 9 lobbies to get this race going. We had the original lobby where we did qualify and everything was smooth. We had about an 18-19 person race, and then a couple more people joined, and we had to back out because we had over 20 people. The lobby, which actually I will show you guys right now how this works. The lobby was only for 20 people because when you make it, it presets the max players to 20. And when J-Con made the lobby, he left it at 20 seeing that we only had about 17, 18, 19 people at the event at that point. So he left it at 20 there. So we had to back out. And then there were many, many other lobbies. J-Con tried making a couple more, but kept fucking up the rules. So eventually Worm got on, and he tried making a lobby, only to have internet issues and lag out whenever he tried to make a lobby. So that was an extra couple lobbies. So then we had Moose try to make a lobby. All the settings were correct, only to find out he left it at 20 people, which I will say that is the funniest part of the clip, is when GVL says it and Moose and everyone else realizes that he has it at 20 people. So we back out of that. Oh yeah, and one of the lobbies before that was a fucking public lobby when it was the correct settings, and we had a couple randos join that we had to back out again for. But after Moose's lobby, Hendrick tried making a lobby, and he even failed. So Papo, who's not even an admin, has practically nothing to do with the league before this moment, yet he was the pole sitter. He makes a lobby, and guess who gets it right? Papo. 9 lobbies after qualifying. Qualifying doesn't even matter at this point. I qualified 5th for that race. I started 15th out of about 22 people. The entire situation is just fucking shit. So, first off, J-Con should have gotten his shit together. J-Con really should have gotten his shit together, and just when he was making the lobby, he sets up all the settings, right? You see all the settings here? And then he takes this and clicks right a few times. See how long that took to get it to 40? Let me do it again for you. You ready? So we do all of our settings before it. And we go here. You see how long that took me? Not very long, is it? Maybe a couple extra seconds to move it all the way up to even 40. Now, mind you, this was a half hour of us trying to start the race. After Daytona and Dover, the first 2 races of the season, were both complete shit shows. They had more caution laps than actual laps in those races. Those were complete shit show races, as it was. So already we have a joke going here, going into Auto Club, which we finally get going, only for lobby lag to be an issue, because that final lobby we had to sit in for almost 5 minutes to be able to get that lobby going, because we couldn't get everyone in. And you know why we couldn't get everyone in? And this was one of the main issues of this race right here, is that there was a Discord call that had admins in it where we were all supposed to be. And then we were all told if you were in a PlayStation party with someone who was in the Discord call, you didn't have to be in the Discord call. So what did that cause? A 15-person PlayStation party with 2 of them in the Discord call, of which 1 isn't even an admin. Now eventually Worm would join the party, make it a 16-person party, and then Moose would leave the call, meaning that it was Worm and Hendrick, only for later Worm to leave because he had to go to bed mid-race, which, fair be it, not his fault. I'm not saying he did anything wrong, but he had to leave, leaving a 15-person party whose only communication to the Discord call was through Hendrick. What the actual fuck? When we're all supposed to be in the Discord call, and then we're suddenly told, oh, you don't have to be as long as someone in the party is. And we have a 15-person party. We had 14 people whose only possible communication to the other half of the field was through 1 person who, as far as I know, doesn't even have admin in the league. And that party was loud as fuck. You are not getting any information across whatsoever. So that was just a mess in and out of itself. That will even be in a thing. And what made it even harder to fucking talk in the party was fucking Moose and Boger, the two loudest people in the party. Go at it. And there is a great clip on Orange's channel where he just has the entire clip of this argument, but let me just sum it up for you in a nutshell. You have Moose screaming some Middle Eastern bullshit about how Boger's a cunt and is thrown off the team. You have Boger screaming some random bullshit about how Moose is a cunt and he didn't want to be in the ride and that he doesn't care. And then you have everyone else just screaming, hyping it up for the video. That's what that moment was right there. That's all that happened there. There was no progress in that argument whatsoever. All they did, the two loudest people in the party, two of the people in the party who can be pretty obnoxious if they really try to be, and yet here they are screaming at each other at the top of their lungs. Mike's fucking 5 feet down their throat, just screaming. What the fuck? And yet one of the admins who was in the party sat back and what did he do? Oh, he did nothing about it. And what was done about it afterwards? Oh, nothing. Because, you know, we didn't need communication in a 22-person race, now did we? I wonder. Just a thought. Maybe we need to have some stricter mic rules in NXT too. Or, hear me out, have everyone in the Discord call instead of just 5 people. That's an idea. But even on track, this wasn't the greatest race. Yes, there was a lot of battle, a lot of 3, 4, even 5 wide action. I think at one point I got caught 5 wide off of turn 4 and just had to drop back because it was so fucking crazy. We were like 5 by 3 at one point, I think. It was fucking wild, but that doesn't exchange for the fact that we had some guys, we had a lack of respect overall in that race, both on and off the track. But on the track, and I can't point fingers here, but there were multiple people, multiple even like big name people in the race that would just send it every corner. I know with the 95 car, almost every corner of that race just full sent it onto the apron and slid up, and then got mad when he didn't let him back up. There were multiple other people that had similar styles throughout that race, but that's just the first one that comes to mind. But that entire race was just sending it into the corner. No one knew how to back it off. No one knew how to be patient. It was a 100-lap race, and on lap 3, they were acting like they were racing for the win at the 500. They were acting like fucking Hamlin and Blaney were coming to the 2020 Daytona 500 finish. Like, we were just all out of whack on the track as well. It was just something that people need to be more patient and need to think more, need to put themselves in better situations rather than fighting for necessarily every position, taking every possible gap and getting no repercussions. Because, you know, also in this league, we don't hand out penalties when people wreck other people or when people cause wrecks. Nothing. I do find some of these situations a little funny. But some of these issues are more pronounced in other leagues we'll talk about later. So before we move on to Velocity last week at Talladega, I want to hand it off to you guys here in the chat. What are your thoughts on the NXT Auto Club race? Any comments you have, any questions you have for me? I want to hear them right now. Lag was horrendous and stupid. Yes, it was, and that was a lot of lobby lag because we ended up sitting in the lobby for about 5 minutes. Once we were in the 9th lobby, sorry, in the final lobby we were in, we sat in for about 5 minutes before the race started. Article was good, just the lobby was horrendous and overall lag in general. I mean, I can kind of agree with that to an extent. People should have been more aggressive. The party should have been much quieter. But I think those are just overarching issues in modern league racing that we're going to have to address as a community, not just in one league. So I've lagged out, fought my way up, wasted 50. Yeah, that... As someone who blew a tire on the final lap and flipped across the line, that race was a complete joke and a waste of my time. I could have done so much better in that time frame. 4 wide, 5 wide on restarts was absolute crazy. Yeah, it was. It really was. People needed to calm down on those restarts. So we'll move on now, and let's talk about a similar situation. Velocity at Talladega. Now, I know this was a week ago. There was another Velocity race tonight. I'm not sure what track it was, but I heard nothing really happened in that race. Let's talk about last week's Velocity race at Talladega Superspeedway for just a quick second. So, coming to the finish. Cars are coming off turn 4. They go 4 wide. They start wrecking. And the guy that led the entire last lap ended up winning. He wasn't even challenged, really. No one got to his bumper. And that wasn't an issue of no one... That wasn't an issue of no one went for it. That wasn't an issue of anything. That was an issue of people don't care about points anymore. And this ties into what I just said a moment ago about the whole community needs to address this issue. That people now, and I started noticing this a couple years ago when we started getting a lot of younger people in, about the time people like Griga joined the community, but I'm not saying he's one of the people in the issue, but about the time he started joining, a lot of those younger people started joining the community, and we started growing this problem of people don't think big picture. They don't think, alright, I just need to get the best finishing result I can. Okay, I need to put myself in the best position I can to get a good result, or possibly the win. Most people in modern league racing think right now that they just need to go for every possible position, especially if they have a pace advantage. They just need to grab the position and move on, which is not the way to go about it. You need to have patience, especially early in a race. You need to think, even on the last lap at Talladega, if you're 5th, you need to think big picture. You need to think, what do I need for points to be able to advance, or to be able to put myself in a better position, or just, you need to think all these different factors in your mind as you're going for that 4 wide move coming off turn 4, going for 2nd, which ends up causing a crash. And we need league owners that really put emphasis on this, and that are going to be stricter on people that cause, especially late race crashes, or just intentionally cause incidents. I know I'm partially to blame for this. In C-Cups, most last lap incidents, whatever goes. But we need some leagues like that, and we need some leagues where you still need to think. And even in C-Cups, you still need to think about how you're going to position yourself. So I think that's an overarching issue in the community. Going from one plate race to another, this wasn't on my notepad, this wasn't on my list to talk about tonight, but let's briefly talk about the Hennessy season opener for Hennessy season opener for trucks at Daytona tonight. What a wild finish that was. I obviously haven't raced in Hennessy for a long time. I didn't see most of the race. I only saw the finish. But Mayhem, with one hell of a run into turn 1, makes a move to the outside, and without help, manages to get the lead on his own on the outside through 1 and 2, drops back down, blocks high, blocks low, and then everyone behind him just either gets side by side and slows each other down, or just causes crashes off of 4 and cleans each other out. No one really got back to Mayhem to challenge him once he got into turn 3. He made some good blocks entering 3 and down the back, which saved him. So congratulations to Mayhem. Yeah, big congratulations to him on that win. And now, we've only got a couple more leagues to talk about, but we got some big issues here. Let's start with the Amazon Prime Performance League, owned by Deegan himself. Let's talk about this here. So before we get into the big storyline of the week, let's talk about the 2 races that were held on Sunday, on Father's Day, at, I believe it was 3 and 4 p.m. Yeah, 3 p.m. and 4 p.m. 3 p.m. Xfinity Series at Phoenix. Congratulations to Eternal for that win. That was just an absolute dominant performance. Almost every lap led. Not much to say there other than note for later. Josh ended up on a very short leash after that race. Moving on, about a half hour after that race ended, we went to Charlotte, where congratulations to Gobum for getting that win. And the biggest rivalry of that race was Worm versus Eternal, all the way back, I believe it was in stage 1, maybe stage 2. Yes, end of stage 1, Eternal riding behind Gobum. Worm and Eternal had a bit of contact. Eternal thought Worm should have been a little more patient. Worm thought Eternal and Boom were holding him up and he should go for the 2 leaders. So there was some contact couple times, and then Worm went to clean out Eternal intentionally and just cleaned out Boom as well. That argument continued for a while. Nothing happened on track, and then later on they apologized, moved on. Honestly, a lot of these rivalries should really end that quick and not continue the way they do. I do think once me and Worm had time to settle down, we definitely handled that a lot better than many rivalries recently have handled. But at Charlotte, we had another driver who got into some incidents. And that was none other than little old Josh himself. Grab the popcorn, boys. Let's talk about Josh's breakdown. Both of them. So, coming out of Charlotte, Josh would have been 22 points below the cut line with 4 races left before the playoffs began. And he caused multiple wrecks during the race. One of them, which he even admitted to be because he wanted to eat popcorn. So he decided to cause a crash to get a caution so that he could stop racing for long enough to eat some popcorn. I don't know why he'd even fucking admit to that. I mean, personally, that's just fucking stupid. You can eat while you race. I mean, even on controller, I used to win league races while eating fucking pizzas. I'd eat a whole large pizza in the middle of a race and still be the fastest car on track. I mean, it's not that hard, even on controller. On wheel, it's even easier. I don't think Josh has a wheel, but either way, he did not need to cause a fucking caution to eat some fucking popcorn. Oh, he is on wheel? Yeah, that makes it even worse. It's so fucking easy. You can jerk off while you race on a wheel, honestly. Like, it's not that fucking hard to race on a wheel. You can do a lot of things while you race on a fucking wheel. Like, you don't need to cause a caution to eat fucking popcorn. Okay? Like, that's just unnecessary. So, we got a little quote from him, and viewer discretion here. This is if you're a bit soft, then this may offend you, so warning now. Josh says, and I quote, "Deegan, I hope you die. Your league is trash." Now, obviously that's not a great thing to say, especially straight to the league owner of the league that you've been racing and kind of sucking off for a while. To which Deegan gave his response to that and said, and I quote, "Says the one who has made 5 different leagues and just caused a wreck by eating popcorn, dumbass." That is a quote from Deegan, the league owner of the APPL. So, now Josh had a breakdown after the race because due to these incidents and some of his comments towards Deegan after the race, Josh was given a 2-race suspension, meaning he would miss 2 races, but then he'd come back with 2 more left before the playoffs started, which, given Amazon's recent attendance, I think he might have still had a shot, personally. Yet, when Goldblum did the exact same thing earlier this season, Goldblum was given a 4-race suspension. Josh was only given 2. Deegan went easy on Josh. Alright, now that my headset's reconnected, so Deegan went easy on Josh here with the penalty. And Josh still had a breakdown, left his league, or left Deegan's league. And this is where we have a question that actually has been raging on for quite a while in the league committee. How much can league owners limit, quote, free speech? Now, this question can take many forms, in the forms of incidents like this, in the form of like criticism in like constructively, just harmful criticism, any form. But how much can a league owner really limit free speech? And this is a question that's been raging on for probably a couple of years, really. And obviously, I think a lot of people have different views on this. My view on this question is that league owners can limit it quite a lot, really. Because in my eyes, when you join a league and agree to race in there, you're also agreeing to respect the owner and follow whatever rules they're going to apply to you. Including any mic rules in the party, especially if the races are recorded or streamed for YouTube or whatever purposes. I feel that league owners really should have a lot of say in what their drivers can and can't say within their league. Obviously, making it so that no one can criticize you, now that's a little Hitler, if you ask me. That's a little far. But I think I just think that league owners really have a right to tell people, like, when to shut up, what they can and can't say. To an extent, they do. But regardless of that question, which is a question that we'll probably talk about more in future episodes, Josh had a second breakdown because he was kicked from a fun party. That's right. There was a fun party. They weren't even on Heat 5, weren't even talking about league racing, and the people in it decided to kick Josh out of the party, and he had a meltdown. Now, obviously, all of my information here is going to be a little one-sided, as I got my information from people like Deegan and that side of the argument here. We don't exactly have Josh's exact side here, but what we do have, and actually, yes, I guess there might be a stream something. They were playing Fall Guys. Josh got kicked from the party, and he had a meltdown because of it. So, what did Josh do this time? Did he leave another league? Did he, you know, get upset and say some things he probably shouldn't have? No, he decides to block Moose, Deegan, Orange, Gavin, and Boger, and then proceeds to delete his own league because he got kicked out of a Fall Guys party? Really? Really? You're in a Fall Guys party. You get kicked out of a Fall Guys party, and you're gonna delete your own racing league on Heat 5 because of it. You're gonna block, what was that, 5 people I listed off? Yeah, you're gonna block 5 people because of it. Is that any way to handle a situation? No, it's definitely not. And I think most people can agree when I say that Josh is just one of the most irrational people in this community. Like, really, we've had some really, like, insane people come through here. I mean, look at Obby. But Josh just, I don't know, some of these actions are just completely irrational. I can't even imagine, like, I'm trying to think of what thought process could have gone through his head to make him do this. Like, I'm trying to think, alright, so you get kicked out of a Fall Guys party. How bad could it have been to where you're gonna delete your own racing league and block 5 people? And I can't think of any possible thought process that's gonna get me to this conclusion. It just doesn't make sense. So, that might not be the full story, but that is all the information that I had about it going in here. So obviously I think in the chat there's some updates about what's been going on, but that's all the information I got. We do got to move on because I don't want this episode to be an entire hour. So, let's talk about the Orioles Xfinity Series doubleheader that happened the other day. And, oh boy, is there a lot to talk about here. First off, this is a case for more Xfinity leagues. We made Dover a good race. Dover became a race where you could make passes, you could keep with the car ahead, you could actually have a good race at Dover, a track that, in my opinion, is one of the worst in the game. Not that I really hate the track by any means. I mean, I don't enjoy driving it in cup cars, but it's a track that I've never found to produce really good racing, especially in the cup cars. But case for more Xfinity leagues out there. We had a good race at fucking Dover, man. Like, good fucking job. I don't know how that happened, but we managed it. And this was the cutoff race going into the round of 6. And there were some wonky rules. A substitute driver would get full points for an actual driver. So it looked like for a while Marner might advance, and then something happened to Dizzy and he got knocked out of it. So then it became a battle between Eternal and Gobum. Gobum had a little more long run pace. Eternal had a little more mid-run pace, and Hendrick, the race leader, had a little bit of everything, maybe a better short-run car than the other two, but certainly all three were pretty even, definitely within like a half a tenth of each other, I'd say, give or take a slight bit. And going into the final pit sequence. There was a pit sequence with like 5 laps to go in this race. Everyone took just a half, or the leaders took a half can and no tires. Some people behind tried 2 tires to try to catch up. It didn't work, but Hendrick and Gobum entered normally, and Eternal in the 22 being, well, Eternal, and being driving Austin Cindric of all people, decided to cheek it a little bit and brake on the racetrack, move down with Mac about a half a car length behind his car and enter way after the commitment line, right before the barrels. So that was a crazy penalty. Gained him like a second. Actually got him ahead of Goldblum. And because it's Dover, with as good of a race as it was really hard to pass on the outside. And with how even these guys' cars were, it was really hard to try to make a move even down a straightaway. And of course, none of these guys made a major mistake after that pit sequence, meaning Eternal got to advance to the next round. Now, Goldblum was pretty pissed about this. Mind you, this was coming off the heels of a few rounds of Fortnite, where Goldblum got pretty pissed at Eternal because he's a cocky son of a bitch. So, we do a second race. Chicagoland. And already before we even got through stage one, there was controversy. Goldblum intentionally wrecked Eternal multiple times. I mean, it was flat out. He admitted to it. He even said he was going to do it. He wrecked him intentionally multiple times. There were some incidents with Hendrick as well that happened, but that wasn't anything to take note of. So Goldblum had to take a pass-through for these incidents, to which Eternal responded by intentionally going a lap down. And W from Moose, he actually slammed into the back of the 22, sending him across the line to make sure that he wouldn't get passed by Goldblum. Goldblum would take the wave around, which would then cause him to get to the 22's inside, coming off of turn 2, when he would then come up the track and just completely dump Eternal again, only to later down the same straightaway, dump Eternal yet again. The entire thing was just a mess. He kept doing it. It was a fucking shit show. But once that settled down and they were actually able to race without crashing, the pack was kept together because the race was high draft. I will be honest, that race wouldn't have been nearly as good as it was if it wasn't for the high draft. That kept the pack really nice and tight. But we will talk in a second. We will talk in a second about what drafted. So let's move on to 4 laps to go, and I really wish Hendrick was watching the stream right now, because oh boy, he would have some things to say. So with 4 laps to go, oh, Hendrick is here. Alright, Hendrick, you're gonna have some stuff to say about this. So it's 4 laps to go at Chicagoland, and Hendrick, the race leader, who's dominated a lot of the races, going through 3 and 4, when tempers are flaring in the midfield. The 22 and the 16 are really getting into it, and the 22 starts hooking the 16 down the backstretch, keeps coming down, and eventually it hooks the 16 to the right. Now, I've reviewed clips since. There was a bit of netcode, but the incident was mostly on the 22. And this created some controversy, not only because of the crash, which personally we're not going to get into how the crash happened, because there are much bigger topics to talk about than one crash caused by one guy. But the caution was called, but not immediately. You see, the 22 got hooked up to the right, which caused him to hit 2 other people, who would then crash in the middle of the backstretch. And then as Griga waited, he saw the car spun and then proceeded to wait an extra about 3-4 seconds before saying caution. Now, mind you, this isn't a league like C-Cups where custom length is run, so there is no overtime possibility. And game yellows were turned off. Now, by the point that Griga said caution, there was no hope of pulling it down pit road and getting a 2 to go restart. Hendrick had already passed pit road by the time Griga said caution. Which leaves the question, this leaves the question now. Should the caution have been called? By the rules, yes. Cautions can come out with more than 3 laps to go in the race. But there was some weird quirks to it in that we didn't get to pit. So everyone was on old tires going into this final restart. And in that, there were just some tempers. Even Hendrick was all flared up at this point. Which, I mean, isn't the most uncommon thing in the world. We've seen it a lot lately, but it was especially amplified in this moment. Should the caution have been called? Yes, the caution being called was the right move. The rules say more than 3 laps to go, a caution can come out. The leader had not grabbed 3 to go yet. He was still on 4 to go. He was a few seconds away from it. But yes, it was the right call. But what should have been done after? Because I don't think having them immediately go straight back to green was the right move. I think that the race should have been finished out as it was, and then a new lobby set up, or maybe not a new lobby, but use the same lobby, go into another race in that lobby, same track obviously, and give everyone the opportunity to pit. A non-competitive pit sequence where you finished in the first race is where you will restart. Non-competitive pit sequence, so you can get all your adjustments in, whatever, take 4 tires, and then we're back to racing. 2-lap shootout, however many overtimes we need. I think that would have been the right call. Now, some people are going to say there shouldn't have been a caution because it was too late, they couldn't get it back going, and it's not a custom length race, so there shouldn't have been a caution. To which, while I agree, maybe there shouldn't have been, the rule said 3 to go, so it was, by the rules, the right call. Now, since then, the rule has been changed. Grigga has changed it to no cautions with 5 or less laps to go. But for the race, it was the right call to at least call the caution. So once we did get back going green, I do want to mention this quick. Congrats to Eternal, who, yes, by all means, did cause the caution, fair be it the wreck is not what was intended, but by all means, he was the primary cause of the caution. Made actually a really good 3-wide move into 1, and then pulled a good block on Moose going into 3. Ran away with it. Congrats there. Should that position have even happened? No, but credit where credit's due. But he's also the owner of C-Cups, who is merging with Oreo's Xfinity Series after both seasons end, which actually both should be ending within the next couple weeks here. The leagues will be merging in the terms that they will work together in terms of scheduling, rules, promotion, the whole 9. But now I want to move on to the last race that I really had to talk about for tonight, and then we'll turn it over to the fans. Actually, let's turn it over to the fans right now real quick before we talk about C-Cups at Auto Club. So, any comments, questions that you have about any of this before we move on to that race? Related comments or questions, dirt tracking. Alright, now that my headset's reconnected, NXT was great. The on-track product on Auto Club was very entertaining to watch, although very frustrating to race in. Especially if you weren't one of the guys just full sending every corner. But the entire race in general was pretty frustrating, other than just spectating it. NXT at Kentucky was overall pretty good, although I wish attendance had been higher for that. Yes, USAFL will be starting their playoffs in about 2 weeks. We'll talk more about that next week, as they have 2 more races. We'll talk next week all about their playoff picture. But let's talk about that NASCAR Sea Cup Series race at Auto Club, and let's start with a question that a lot of people, especially Hendrick, have been asking, as he is a fucking Auto Club merchant, absolute god at the racetrack. He is. So he's one that is going to be very vocal about this in the chat, but high draft versus normal draft, which is better? This is a question that's been asked for quite a while. The NASCAR Sea Cup Series race at Auto Club Speedway used high draft influence, which in turn caused the entire pack to stay together for the large majority of the race, caused some pretty good on-track product, but also meant that no matter how much of a pace advantage you had, you really didn't have a shot at pulling away or keeping your lead. You just had to hope that you could play the draft right. And also that if you somehow lost the draft, like if it got screwed out or you made a mistake, whatever, you were fucked. Once you lost the draft, you were not getting it back unless something happened in front of you to cause them to back up to you. So, this begs the question, high draft or normal? After seeing that race, I lean more towards, especially at tracks like Auto Club in Michigan, I'm starting to lean a little more towards normal, especially at Auto Club. Michigan, you can get away with either. Intermediates, some of them you need high, like Chicagoland, you need high draft. Kentucky benefits from it, but it's not necessary. A lot of those you can get away with normal, though, except for some tracks like Vegas and Kansas, you can really get away with low. But regardless of the draft, there was one recurrent theme that was especially noted by Dirt Tracking and his little friend. I forget who it was, but there were 2 people that were lap cars that were going a lap down, and I think they actually I think they were 2 laps down. Yes, it was Dirt and Worm were 2 laps down, either going 2 laps down or going 3 laps down, and they got in a little incident with the race leaders. They kind of held up some of the leaders, kind of pushed some of the others ahead. And that's one issue that really plagued that race and some other recent races in leagues. I've noticed lap cars do not respect the leaders. They're going to race for whatever on-track position they can, whatever lap they can. They don't care about the other people's race, which, to an extent, they don't need to. But if you're 2 laps down going 3 laps down, or you're 2 laps down and the guy behind you is in like 5th, let the lead lap cars go. Unless you have like a half a second a lap pace advantage, which clearly if you're in that situation, you don't. Just let the lead lap cars go at that point. There's no need to fight them, screw their races, slow both of you down, and just cause drama. That's not something that's necessary. If you're a lap car, you need to move out of the way, and I think that's something leagues need to start enforcing as a rule. speaking of rules, one rather controversial rule in C Cups that I've noticed a couple other leagues recently start imposing is a couple restart rules. Now, I'm not talking about going in the zone. I'm not talking about jumps. I'm talking about the apron. A lot of leagues recently have started imposing a rule like C Cups has, where if you go below the apron, even 2 tires below the apron, then you have to drop back, which some people like, some people don't. And this is a question I'll turn over to the chat. I'll turn over to the chat real quick. What's your opinion on this rule? Where on restarts, if you go below the apron before the start-finish line, you get penalized and sent back. Some guys say it depends on the track. Some like it because it helps the high side guys keep with the bottom guys, gives less of an advantage to the guys on the bottom, which, depending on the track, this can be a big deal. At Phoenix, if you're on the bottom and you can dive down immediately, you can gain like a second almost from just diving down there immediately, if not more than a second from diving down immediately compared to staying up. Whereas at a track like even Auto Club, or like Kentucky, which has a small apron, Michigan, it really doesn't do a whole lot because that's only one lane you can move down. Doesn't do too much. But like I said, a track like Phoenix, it does a lot. At a track like Las Vegas or Kansas, it can actually mean a lot, where those tracks have big aprons where going down can save you some time. Restart rules definitely a controversial one. We'll see how leagues progress them in the future. I'm interested in that one. Another rule that plagued that race, which is one that will be getting fixed for future races, is that cautions. You needed 4 cars around to cause a caution. What the hell? What? Even as the person who was running that race, I don't know what I was thinking imposing that rule. You needed 4 cars to spin within 1 lap out of 15 cars. You needed almost a quarter of the field. You needed over a quarter of a 15-car field to spin in a single lap in order to get a caution. Or you had the leader spin, which I think one of the only cautions of the day came from the leader spinning after missing pit road. So that's a rule that needs to be fixed, and leagues really need to take a second when imposing their caution rules and think about how they're going to do it. I only got a couple more points here. Before I talk about the race winner, let's take a look at the points, as C-Cups has only 2 races left in Season 9. Dizzy is locked in. Eternal is 38 above. He's practically locked. Griga, 27 above. He's almost locked. Hendrick, 18 above. Really, the only way any of those guys are going to miss is if someone below wins, which then goes to a points battle between Hendrick and Griga. Griga 9 ahead of Hendrick. The guys below, Deegan minus 18, Moose minus 21, Mac minus 45, and Cadet minus 47. Las Vegas, actually tomorrow night. That's going to be an interesting race. Next week, assuming I don't win the championship, whoever does will be featured on the show next week, as the championship race will be this Saturday. Tomorrow night we'll find out who will be racing for a championship on Saturday. But let's talk about the race winner real quick. Papo Musa, who as my mic dies. So Papa Musa, who has come into a lot of leagues lately and just started dominating. We need to handicap him, man. Um, I mean, you look what he did at Bristol. You look what he did at Auto Club and C-Cubs. You look at what he's been doing in some other leagues lately. Man is on a roll. He races a ton of leagues, and it just makes him better and better. He just grinds it out. Man is so good. I'll give credit where credit is due. Papa, one fucking hell of a racer. Honestly, after the era that GU and Don Cheetos and Vern had put on of their dominance, I didn't think we'd ever see a guy come in to the community and do something like that again, but here Papa was doing it. And recently Hendrick has started to show a lot of similar speed as well, which I do enjoy someone giving Papa a challenge, although I wish it wasn't the same guy every race. So, congrats to Papa on the win, and as we have a lot of new people joining the community lately, I want to point out that we may actually be returning to a bit of an old group in the community, as multiple people that had left for a while are actually coming back. Vern has recently been running the League Racing Network Instagram account, which has been doing pretty good, and Patrick, Awesome, and G-Man have all recently been returned into the group. We've seen Awesome race C-Cups, Oreos Xfinity. I think he ran maybe an Amazon race. Oh yeah, he ran a couple Amazon races as well. We saw Patrick return at Auto Club. He tried to race Bristol. We saw G-Man return back at New Hampshire. He's been racing a couple races here and there lately. So this may be an era where we're going to return to some old guys returning here, and hopefully the community can just get to a better spot than where it is. I know it used to be in a really good spot, and I want to get back there. I want some really fucking good races. Not just in C-Cups, but in all these leagues, in NXT, Oreo, Amazon, Velocity, Hennessy, all these leagues. I want them to get better races than what we've been given, because I know a lot of these leagues, green flag pit cycles are scarce, to say the least. And that's something that needs to be fixed. Good finishes have been scarce without controversy, and that's also something that really needs to be fixed. So with that, I believe that's about all I have for content for you guys planned for today. Next week we'll actually be on the Off the Gas YouTube account. That will be up since it'll be after 24 hours. So we'll be able to stream over there. Episode 2 next Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.